the school bell rang loudly across Gracefield Secondary School as students dragged their boxes into the compound. It was the beginning of a new term, and the hostel was buzzing with excitement and complaints. The hostel mistress, Madam Esther, stood at the gate with her stern face. "Girls, hurry up. No loitering. Remember, hostel life is about discipline. No sneaking out, no boys, and no bad behavior. Anybody caught will be expelled," she warned. The girls murmured, rolling their eyes behind her back. "Every term the same speech," whispered Sophia, a tall, beautiful girl with sharp eyes. She was the daughter of Deacon James, one of the most respected men in town. People expected her to be a model student, but inside the hostel she was known to be stubborn. Her friends Lillian, Ada, Blessing, and Ruth gathered around her bunk later that evening. The hostel lights flickered, and the noise of other girls settling down filled the room. "This term, I swear, I can't survive only on lights out and prep," Lillian groaned. "We need excitement." Sophia smiled mischievously. "Don't worry, I have a plan. Hostel life doesn't have to be boring. We just need to be smarter than these matrons." The girls leaned closer, their eyes sparkling with curiosity. A few nights into the term, the hostel had settled into its usual routine. The lights went off at 9 p.m., and soon the sound of snores filled the dormitory. But on Sophia's side of the room, 5 girls lay wide awake. Sophia whispered, "Girls, I told you I have a plan. If we stick together, hostel life will never be boring again." "What plan?" Ada asked eagerly. Sophia lowered her voice. "We'll form our own group, our own gang, a secret one. We'll call ourselves the Queens. We'll be sisters, loyal to each other, and do what others are too scared to do." Lillian giggled. "I like that, the Queens." Blessing looked worried. "But what if we get caught? You know Madam Esther doesn't joke." Sophia smirked. "Caught? Never! I already discovered a small hole behind the hostel fence. If we crawl through it, we can get out at night without anyone knowing." The girls gasped. Sneaking out of the hostel was forbidden. Ruth whispered, "So where will we even go?" Sophia's eyes glowed with mischief. "There's a small joint near town. We can start from there. Buy suya, enjoy the night breeze. Later, maybe even visit clubs. Nobody will ever suspect Deacon's daughter to be sneaking out. That's our cover." They all laughed softly, thrilled by the danger. That night, they swore an oath to keep their secret gang hidden from everyone. The Queens were born. The hostel clock ticked towards midnight. Almost everyone was asleep, except the 5 girls who now called themselves the Queens. Sophia whispered from her bunk, "Tonight is our first mission. Are you all ready?" Lillian sat up quickly. "I've been waiting for this." Ada grinned. "Let's go before I change my mind." They tiptoed out of the dormitory, careful not to wake the snoring matron. The hostel compound was quiet, the moonlight casting shadows across the walls. Sophia led the way to the back fence. She bent down and brushed aside some tall grass, revealing a small hole just big enough to crawl through. One by one, the girls squeezed through, giggling softly as they landed on the other side. For the first time, they were outside the school at night. Free. "Let's go," Sophia whispered, excitement in her voice. The girls hurried down a dusty path that led to the main road. Their hearts pounded with fear and thrill. Soon, they reached a roadside joint. The air was thick with the smell of roasted meat and pepper. They ordered suya, laughing loudly as though they had no worries in the world. To them, this was freedom. "See, I told you life doesn't have to be boring," Sophia said, licking pepper from her fingers. But as they chewed and laughed, none of them noticed a group of older boys watching them from the corner of the joint. The boys whispered amongst themselves, their eyes following the girls with interest. The next morning at Gracefield Secondary School, the bell rang for assembly. Students stood in neat lines while the principal spoke about discipline and excellence. Sophia stood tall in her line, her uniform spotless, her face glowing with innocence. Teachers often pointed her out as a good example because of her father's reputation as a church deacon. Nobody could guess that she had sneaked out of the hostel the night before. Beside her, Lillian whispered with a grin, "Last night was fire. I still smell the suya." Ada chuckled quietly. "I didn't sleep well because my stomach was too full." "Shh!" Ruth hissed nervously. "If they find out we're students, we're dead." But Sophia's confidence silenced their fears. "Relax. We just have to be smart. In the day, we act like saints. At night, we enjoy life." And so it began, their double life. By day, they were ordinary schoolgirls, attending classes, laughing with friends, pretending to be serious with their books. At night, they became the queens, sneaking out through the hole in the fence, eating at joints, and slowly making their way into clubs. One Friday night, Sophia brought out hidden clothes she had smuggled into the hostel, a short skirt, a crop top, and some lipstick. "Tonight, we go to the real place, a club," she announced, proudly. The girls gasped. It was dangerous, but the temptation was stronger than fear. "Deacon's daughter in a nightclub?" Blessing whispered in disbelief. Sophia only laughed. "That's why no one will suspect us. Let's go, queens. Our fun is just starting." The hostel gates stood silent that night, unaware that within its walls 5 girls were already living 2 lives, one for the world to see, and one that would soon destroy them. The club lights flashed red and blue, the music pounding so loud the girls could feel it in their chests. For the first time, the queens stepped into a world they had only heard about. Sophia led the way, hips swaying confidently. She looked nothing like a schoolgirl. She looked like she belonged there. Lillian's eyes widened. "This place is mad, oh! Look at the lights, the people!" Ada laughed as she tried her first sip of beer. "Ah, it's bitter but sweet. I like it." Blessing hesitated, clutching her bag. "I don't think this is a good idea." But Sophia placed a hand on her shoulder. "Relax, Blessing. You only live once. Don't let fear cage you." Soon they were dancing wildly on the floor. Older boys and young men gathered around them, offering them drinks. "Baby girl, what's your name?" one of the boys asked Lillian, sliding closer. "Lillian," she replied shyly, but her smile betrayed her excitement. Another boy approached Ada, pressing money into her hand. "For your transport back," he said with a wink. Ada's heart raced. Easy money had just fallen into her hands. Ruth, on the other hand, stayed at the corner, sipping a soft drink nervously. She whispered to Blessing, "If they find out we're students, we're dead." But Sophia was already lost in the music, laughing and tossing her hair as if the whole club belonged to her. That night, temptation wrapped itself around the queens. Money, drinks, attention, and the thrill of freedom. They returned to the hostel before dawn, tired but excited, crawling back through the fence. Sophia grinned as they lay on their bunks. "Didn't I tell you? This is life. Books won't give you this kind of enjoyment." It was a cold night, and the hostel was unusually quiet. The queens waited until the lights went out, then gathered by Sophia's bunk, ready for another escape. "Tonight we dance till morning," Lillian said with a giggle. "Shh, keep your voice down," Ada warned. They tiptoed out, as usual, but just as they were crawling through the hole in the fence, a sharp voice cut through the night. "Where do you girls think you're going?" They froze. It was Madame Esther, the hostel mistress, holding a lantern. Her face was stern, her eyes blazing. Fear gripped them. Blessing almost cried on the spot. We were just..." "Just what?" she snapped. "Do you think I don't know? Something strange has been happening here. I may not have caught you before, but I've been watching." The girls trembled in silence. Madame Esther pointed a finger at them. "One day, your secrets will disgrace you. The night may look sweet, but it will destroy your future if you don't stop now. Go back to your bunks immediately." Sophia, trying to be bold, mumbled, "Yes, ma." and led the group back inside. But when they were safely in the dormitory, Ada hissed. That was close. What if she reports us to the principal? She won't, Sophia said confidently. If she had proof, we'd already be expelled. She's just trying to scare us. Still, none of them slept well that night. Madame Esther's warning echoed in their minds. But instead of stopping, they only became more careful, believing they were too smart to ever be caught. The road ahead, however, was already waiting to prove them wrong. Weeks passed, and the queens became regular faces at the club. They knew the DJs, the waiters, and even some of the big boys who spent money freely. Among them, Lillian was the boldest. She had caught the attention of Deo, one of the club DJs. He was older, charming, and showered her with compliments. One night, as she laughed by his side, he whispered, "Why don't you come over after the club? I'll take care of you." At first, Lillian hesitated, but the promise of money, love, and attention was too sweet. She followed him. Soon, sneaking out wasn't about fun with the queens anymore. Lillian now had her own secret life. She lied to the girls, pretending she was still just going out to dance, but she was spending nights with Deo. Months later, Lillian began to feel strange. She was always tired, her uniform grew tighter, and she avoided sports. Ruth noticed first. "Lillian, are you okay? You look different." Lillian snapped. "Leave me alone." But one morning during assembly, Lillian fainted. The school nurse confirmed what she had been hiding. She was pregnant. The news spread like wildfire. Teachers, students, and even her parents were shocked. Lillian was withdrawn from school in shame, her dreams of graduating shattered. When the queens gathered secretly that night, the room was heavy with silence. Ada whispered, "So it's true. Lillian is pregnant?" Blessing buried her face in her hands. "This could be any of us." Sophia clenched her fists, her pride wounded. "Listen to me. Lillian was careless. That's why she got caught. We just have to protect ourselves and never lose focus." Ruth bit her lip nervously. "But, Sophia, don't you think Madame Esther is right? What if we end up disgraced too?" Sophia's voice hardened. "If you're scared, leave. But don't forget, you swore to this gang. We are the queens. We don't quit." The girls exchanged uneasy glances. Fear had entered their hearts, but Sophia's confidence still held them together. That night, when they sneaked out again, the laughter wasn't as free as before. Each girl looked over her shoulder more than once, wondering when their own day of disgrace might come. The bond that once felt exciting was slowly turning into a chain they could no longer escape. The queens sneaked out again one Saturday night, but the mood was different. Without Lillian, the group felt incomplete. Still, Sophia pushed them on. At the club, Ada's eyes caught a group of flashy men seated at a VIP table. Their gold chains sparkled and wads of cash peeked out from their pockets. They looked powerful, dangerous, and rich. One of them waved at her. "Hey, fine girl, come sit here." Ada hesitated, but curiosity pulled her closer. She sat down, sipping a drink they offered. The man leaned in and whispered, "Why don't you come over after the club? I'll take care of you." Her heart raced. The thought of money and luxury was too tempting. She imagined herself in designer clothes, living like a queen outside the hostel walls. When the other girls were ready to leave, Ada shook her head. "You people go. I'll catch up later." "Are you mad?" Ruth whispered. "These men look dangerous." Sophia frowned. "Ada, don't be stupid. Let's go." But Ada stood her ground. "You girls are cowards. I know what I'm doing." Against their pleas, she followed the men into a black SUV waiting outside the club. The car sped off into the night. Back in the hostel, the remaining queens lay awake in silence, worry hanging in the air. What if something happens to her? Blessing asked, her voice trembling. Sophia shrugged, though her face was tight. She'll be fine. Ada always wants quick things. Let her learn. But as the hours dragged on, and Ada didn't return, even Sophia's confidence began to crack. The adventure Ada thought would make her rich was already dragging her into the hands of people far more dangerous than she could ever imagine. 2 days passed, and there was no sign of Ada. The queens pretended everything was normal, but inside, fear was eating them alive. Then, on the 3rd day, news spread through the school. A girl had been found by the roadside, half dead. When Sophia and the others secretly went to confirm, their hearts sunk. It was Ada. She was weak, pale, and shaking as she lay in the hospital bed. One of her hands was gone, bandaged in white cloth. She couldn't stop crying. Between sobs, she told them what had happened. The men took me to a big house outside town. They promised me money, said I would be rich, but in the night they tied me up. They started chanting things. I realized they were ritualists. I begged, I cried, but they didn't stop. They cut off my hand. Blessing covered her mouth in horror. Jesus Christ! Ruth burst into tears. So they wanted to use you for money rituals? Ada nodded weakly. I don't know how I escaped. Maybe they thought I was dead when I fainted. Some people found me by the roadside and brought me here. The girls stood frozen, their blood cold. This was no longer fun. Their secret life had almost cost Ada her life. Sophia tried to stay strong, but even her voice trembled. You see why I told you to be careful. Ada, you should have listened. Ada turned her teary eyes on them. Careful? None of us is safe. I lost my hand because of this nonsense life we chose. If you people don't stop, it will finish you too. Her words pierced through them like knives. For the first time, the queens felt the true weight of their actions. After Ada's ordeal, the hostile atmosphere changed. The once bold and fearless queens now walked around with heavy hearts. The laughter they once shared had disappeared, replaced by silence and fear. Among them, Blessing was the most shaken. She couldn't get the image of Ada's missing hand out of her mind. Each time she tried to sleep, nightmares haunted her. One night, while the others were whispering about sneaking out again, Blessing broke down. I can't do this anymore, she cried, clutching her pillow. Blessing, keep your voice down. Do you want the whole hostel to hear? But Blessing didn't care. Tears rolled down her face as she said, Look at what happened to Lillian. Look at Ada. Are you blind? This thing will destroy all of us. I just want to go back to being normal. Ruth's eyes watered too. She's right, Sophia. I'm scared. What if next time it's me? But Sophia's pride wouldn't let her admit defeat. You two are weak. Do you want to live your whole life like prisoners? We just need to be careful. Nothing else will happen. Blessing shook her head. No, Sophia. I regret ever following you. If my parents knew what I've been doing, they would collapse in shame. I don't want to end up like Lillian or Ada. She buried her face in her hands and sobbed uncontrollably. For the first time, the gang no longer felt united. The bond of the queens was breaking, and fear was tearing them apart from inside. But Sophia still held on tightly, refusing to let go of the reckless life she had started. And it was only a matter of time before the next disaster struck. Ruth had always been the quiet one among the queens. While Sophia enjoyed the attention and Ada and Lillian chased thrills, Ruth often stood in the corner nervous but too afraid to walk away. But after Ada's tragedy, Ruth carried a secret she couldn't share. During one of their club nights weeks earlier, she had given in to pressure from a boy who promised her love and protection. It was a mistake she regretted deeply, but the damage was done. Now her body was changing. She felt constant pain, and strange rashes appeared on her skin. At night, she hid under her blanket, scratching and weeping silently. One evening, while the girls were preparing for prep, Blessing noticed her discomfort. "Ruth, are you okay? You're sweating too much." Ruth forced a smile. "I'm fine, just tired." But Blessing wasn't convinced. Later, she whispered to her, "Tell me the truth." Ruth's eyes filled with tears. She shook her head. I can't say it." Days later, her condition worsened. She could no longer hide it. During a morning lesson, she collapsed in class. The school nurse rushed her to the clinic, and after tests, it was revealed she had contracted a serious infection. The news spread quickly. Students whispered, teachers shook their heads, and Madame Esther was furious. When Sophia heard it, she tried to act unconcerned. So what? That's her problem. But Blessing glared at her. Her problem? Sophia, do you realize we're all walking on the same path? Lillian is gone. Ada lost her hand. Ruth is sick. And you still think this is a game? For the first time, Sophia couldn't find words. The queens were falling apart, one by one. Despite all that had happened, Sophia still carried herself with pride. She was the daughter of Deacon James, and she believed her father's name would shield her from disgrace. But one night at the club, she danced wildly on the stage, her friends cheering and recording on their phones. She didn't know that someone else was also recording, someone who would upload the video online. By the next morning, the clip had gone viral on social media. It showed Sophia, in skimpy clothes, grinding on strangers while shouting, "The Queens forever!" The news spread like wildfire. Teachers were stunned, students whispered in shock, and worst of all, the video reached her father's church members. On Sunday, Deacon James was supposed to lead prayers, but instead, he walked into church with his head bowed, unable to face the congregation. Members whispered, "Isn't that his daughter in the video? The one who leads Hostel girls astray?" Back in school, the principal summoned Sophia. His voice was heavy with disappointment. "Sophia, do you realize the disgrace you've brought upon yourself, your family, and the school? Your father is a respected man, and yet you've dragged his name in the mud." Sophia sat frozen, her confidence shattered. She had never imagined her secret life would come to light so publicly. That evening in the hostel, Blessing looked at her with pity. "You see, we told you. Now the whole world knows." Sophia buried her face in her hands. For the first time, the proud leader of the queens felt shame. Her double life had collapsed in front of everyone. And the fall was heavier than she had ever feared. The scandal shook Gracefield Secondary School to its core. The principal wasted no time. Parents of all the queens were summoned. The hostel was filled with weeping mothers, angry fathers, and disappointed guardians. One by one, the girls were called out. Lillian's parents came first, their faces still heavy with shame from her pregnancy. Ada's mother cried bitterly as she held her daughter's bandaged arm. Ruth's father stormed into the clinic, furious that her daughter had been reckless. And then came Sophia's turn. Deacon James walked into the principal's office, his Bible under his arm, his face dark with sorrow. For years he had preached discipline and holiness. Now his own daughter had disgraced him before the church and the entire town. When Sophia tried to speak, her father silenced her with a raised hand. "No word, Sophia, no word. You have broken me." His voice cracked, and for the first time, Sophia saw her strong father in tears. The school board decided on punishments: suspensions, community service, and strict monitoring. The Queens were officially disbanded, their once proud name now a mark of shame. In the hostel, other girls whispered and pointed at them. They were no longer admired, but mocked as examples of what not to become. Blessing sat quietly on her bunk, tears in her eyes. We thought we were enjoying life, but look at us now, broken, disgraced, and empty. Even Sophia, once bold and fearless, had no reply. The weight of their choices pressed down on them all. The double life they had lived was finally over, but the scars it left would remain forever. Months passed, and the dust slowly began to settle. Life at Gracefield Secondary School continued, but for the girls of the Queens, nothing would ever be the same. Lillian stayed at home, nursing her pregnancy. She often cried when she remembered how a single night of excitement destroyed her future dreams. Ada learned to live with her missing hand. She returned to school eventually, but every time she looked at the empty sleeve of her uniform, her heart broke. Ruth became quiet and withdrawn. Her once playful laughter gone, she carried guilt like a heavy stone. Sophia, the former leader, was the most broken of them all. Her father no longer trusted her, the church members whispered behind her back, and her pride had melted away. One Sunday, Pastor Miriam was invited to preach at their school fellowship. Her sermon cut through the girls' hearts. Sin looks sweet in the beginning, but it leaves scars that last a lifetime. A good name is better than silver and gold. Young people, never trade your future for a moment's pleasure. The words pierced Sophia. Tears streamed down her cheeks. For the first time, she stood before her fellow students and confessed. I thought I was wise, but I was foolish. I thought I was leading my friends to enjoyment, but I led them to pain. Please, don't follow the path I chose. The entire fellowship went silent. Some students wept, others nodded. From that day, the Queens scattered for good. Though scarred, the girls carried one lesson for life. Wrong choices may seem small, but they carry heavy consequences. And so their story became a warning whispered through the hostel halls. The tale of the Queens who lost everything, chasing shadows.